Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's go back to our main character. The gala was lit like $1,000 chandelier. Literally, there were 12 of them. Suits tailored tighter than the CEO's smile, glasses clinking like nervous teeth. Everyone knew the stakes tonight. Ethan Blackwell, the tech tycoon with the charm of a winter storm, was set to unveil the company's biggest merger yet. Until a crash. Followed by a small gasp. And a splash of raspberry sorbet that hit his tux like a paintball. Oh my god, I didn't see. Oh no, a young woman stammered. Sophie. 25. Holding a tray that had just lost its entire dignity. Or rather, she'd been holding it 2 seconds ago. Now, she stood frozen, cheeks matching the sorbet on his lapel. A nanny. Not even supposed to be there. She had wandered in looking for Leo, Ethan's 7-year-old son, who had a habit of escaping black tie events to hunt for cookies. Ethan blinked once. Then twice. The room fell into that awkward hush where everyone pretends not to be watching, but is absolutely watching. He looked down at his ruined suit. She looked down at her shoes. I can get napkins, she offered, already stepping back and promptly stepping onto the corner of a camera cable. Which tugged. Which unhooked the screen behind him. Which fell on the CEO. Gasps. Phones raised. Sophie squeaked. The next moment, security was moving in, and so was the press. Flashes, murmurs, whispers of scandal. And Ethan? He raised one hand, stopping them all. This, he muttered, looking directly at her, his voice cold enough to chill champagne, is why we have protocols. Sophie nodded, eyes wide, lips pressed shut. But then her gaze drifted to the giant screen lying in shambles behind him. Something caught her eye. She pointed. Sir? That presentation slide, it's showing the wrong company name. You're about to sign with Hudson Tech, right? Ethan turned slowly. The logo flashing on the screen said Hudsonware Systems, LLC. Wrong company. Wrong deal, wrong legal entity. He stared at it for a beat too long. Then, without a word, turned to his assistant and snapped, shut it down. Now. Panic spread. The deal was seconds away from a public disaster. The media was this close to broadcasting a billion-dollar mistake. And somehow, the person who saved it was the nanny in sneakers. Still holding a half-broken tray. Still unsure if she was about to be fired. He turned to her again. What's your name? She blinked. Sophie. Sophie Alvarez. I'm Leo's nanny. I was just found something else instead, he cut in. And then he walked away. No thank you. No apology. But later that night, when Sophie crept back to grab her purse, she overheard the senior VP muttering to Ethan, if she hadn't caught that name error we'd be in court by Monday. Ethan didn't respond. Just stared out the window of the penthouse ballroom. Thinking. Meanwhile, Sophie? She just wanted to go home and pretend none of this had happened. But the universe had other plans. Sophie didn't sleep that night. Not because of guilt but because of confusion. Did she save $1 billion deal? Or did she just delay her own firing? At 6:30 a.m., she was already packing Leo's school snacks. Animal crackers, carrot sticks, a juice box. Her hands moved on autopilot. Her mind, however, kept replaying Ethan's stare. Not angry. Not grateful. Just unreadable. 8:02 a.m. Blackwell Tower. Sophie stepped out of the elevator wearing the same sneakers from last night. The same backpack. The same nervous smile she always used to fake confidence. The receptionist blinked when she saw her. "You're still here?" "Apparently," Sophie said. "Until I'm officially fired, I figured I'd keep doing my job." The receptionist leaned in, whispering. "Word is, you saved Mr. Blackwell from signing a contract with the wrong company." Sophie shrugged. "I also destroyed his presentation and dumped sorbet on his suit." "True. But he didn't yell." "That's new." 9:00 a.m. Leo ran down the marble hallway like a race car. His shoelaces were untied. Sophie caught him just before he face-planted into a corporate intern. "Whoa, buddy. Let's not add concussions to our resume, okay?" Leo giggled. "Dad said I can have pizza tonight." She raised an eyebrow. "Your dad spoke to you? Voluntarily?" Leo grinned. He was smiling. Like, real smiling. Not scary. Sophie blinked. That was new. 10:13 a.m. Miss Alvarez, a voice called. She turned. An assistant sleek suit, clipboard, zero smile stood at the doorway. "Mr. Blackwell wants to see you. Now." Sophie followed, her sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. The hallway to Ethan's office felt like a runway, if the runway led to judgment. She stepped in. He was at the window, back turned, city skyline gleaming behind him. He didn't turn. "You have a background in tech?" The question came like a dart, fast, sharp, unexpected. "You dropped out." "But, yeah, robotics major. Used to build things." "And now you build lunchboxes," he said dryly. She bit her tongue. "Life happens." He turned, finally. His eyes were still cold. But not dismissive. More like, curious. "You spotted a flaw no one else did." "How?" She shrugged. "I've been signing Leo up for daycares, insurance, doctor visits. I notice the names. Hudson Tech does apps. Hudsonware sells calculators. Different fonts, different colors." Ethan stared at her. Then picked up a folder and tossed it onto the table. "You're being reassigned." She blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "Leo's fine. You'll still check in on him. But from now on, you're assisting me during contract reviews." Informal. Internal eyes. Sophie stared. "But I'm not qualified, you're observant. And unfiltered. That's rare." She opened her mouth. Closed it. Then tried again. "So, you're promoting me?" "I'm testing you." "A beat. Don't spill coffee this time." As she walked out, still stunned, the receptionist gave her a thumbs up. Sophie gave a small smile. A test. From Ethan Blackwell. What could possibly go wrong? Sophie's new desk wasn't really a desk. It was a spare chair parked in the corner of Ethan Blackwell's office next to a lamp that didn't work and a plant that hadn't been watered since the Obama administration. There was no welcome email. No badge. No training. Just a folder labeled "Read this." She opened it. Contracts. Memos. Confidentiality clauses with more red ink than her high school report cards. Halfway through the second page, Ethan spoke without looking up. "Spot anything unusual?" Sophie squinted. "You're listing a vendor twice, under two names. That's a tax issue waiting to happen." Silence. He looked up. "You read fast." "I skim efficiently," she corrected. "I also survive off coffee and pure panic." He almost smiled. Almost. By noon, she had caught 3 typos, 1 formatting error, and a clause that contradicted the previous page. By 12:15, she was starving. Sophie pulled a sandwich from her bag and took a bite, then realized Ethan was still typing furiously across the room. "You don't eat?" she asked. "Food slows the brain." "So does malnutrition," she muttered through lettuce. He paused. Looked up. "That tuna?" "Nope." "Sad turkey." He went back to typing. She went back to chewing. At 2:07 p.m., he tossed her another document. She caught it barely. "Review this NDA. Highlight inconsistencies." "No problem," she said. Except her highlighter exploded. Green ink shot across the page and onto Ethan's sleeve. "Oh my God, she jumped up, trying to dab it with a tissue. He held up a hand. "Stop. You'll make it worse." She froze, wide-eyed. "You're going to fire me, aren't you?" He looked down at the green smear. Then back at her. "This isn't even in the top 5 disasters you've caused." He smirked. "A real one." By 300, Sophie had officially been labeled the girl in the corner by the executive team. Whispers followed her in the hallway. "That's the nanny, right? Did you hear she saved the merger? Are we seriously trusting a babysitter with legal docs?" She kept walking. Head high. Even if her socks didn't match. Back at the office, Ethan handed her a tablet. "This one's trickier. See if you notice what legal missed." Sophie tapped through the document. Clause after clause. Terms, deadlines, embedded footnotes. Then she saw it. A tiny asterisk leading to a payout clause hidden in microprint. She frowned. "This clause benefits the competitor." "Like, a lot." Ethan leaned in. "Explain." Sophie stood, pointing. "They inserted a sub-condition. If your site delays delivery by even 24 hours, you lose 12 of profit. And the deadline set 1 day before a national holiday." Smart trick. Ethan stared at her like she'd just read his mind. "You know contract law?" "No. I know loopholes. And babysitting teaches you how to spot traps." He looked at her. Longer this time. Then turned to the phone. "Cancel the signing meeting," he told his assistant. "And get legal in here." He hung up. "Nice catch," he said quietly. Sophie gave a small nod. Then sat back in her corner, feeling like she belonged, just a little more. But later that evening as she packed her bag, she overheard 2 executives outside the door. "She's temporary," one said. "Just a fluke. Ethan will toss her out in a week." Sophie's fingers tightened around her straps. She wasn't here to impress them. But still. It stung. From across the room, Ethan looked up. "Everything okay?" She turned, forcing a smile. "Yep. Just learning to keep my highlighters to myself." He didn't reply. But as she stepped out, she heard his voice, low, calm, direct. "Tell PR. We'll include her name on the internal memo." Pause. She earned it. Sophie didn't stop walking. But her steps were just a little lighter. Friday morning came with rain. Not gentle rain, the sideways, coat-drenching, taxi-avoiding kind that made Sophie's socks wet before she even reached the building. By the time she stepped into Blackwell Tower, her ponytail looked like it had survived a small hurricane. The receptionist blinked. "You okay?" Sophie grinned, teeth chattering. "I'm fine. Just did a casual swim through Midtown." She wrung out her sleeves and made her way upstairs, hoping the heater in Ethan's office worked. Spoiler, it didn't. Ethan looked up as she entered. Her hair dripped. Her shoes squeaked. A puddle formed near the lamp. He sighed. You're damp. Very observant, Sherlock, she muttered. He handed her a towel from a drawer. Not a fresh one. More like, emergency level clean. She took it gratefully. Thanks. Try not to short-circuit the office. Noted. By 9:30, they were both knee-deep in documents for the upcoming investor meeting. Sophie highlighted errors, flagged inconsistencies, and once again managed to knock over a cup of pens. Twice. But Ethan didn't flinch. Didn't sigh. Didn't even smirk. At one point, he asked her thoughts on a strategic clause. She gave him a full answer with metaphors, and a post-it diagram that looked like a toddler's drawing. He stared at it for a second. Then nodded. This actually makes sense. Sophie gasped. Wait, did I just impress you? You startled me. That's close. At noon, Ethan's son Leo barged in soaked, wild-haired, and clutching a soggy cardboard dinosaur. Miss Sophie. My Trex melted. Sophie rushed to him, drying his face with her scarf. It didn't melt, it evolved, she said with a wink. Ethan watched them quietly. Sophie caught his gaze. He wasn't supposed to be here until 3. The school called. Storm caused a pipe issue. I told my driver to bring him here. Sophie looked down at Leo's muddy shoes now printing tracks across Ethan's pristine rug. She braced herself. But Ethan only said, we'll get a new rug. Wait, what? That afternoon, she noticed something stranger. Every time Sophie made a joke, Ethan responded. Dry comments. Soft eye rolls. Tiny smirks. The man who once seemed carved from granite was now human? She wasn't sure. But something had shifted. At 4:45 p.m., as they wrapped up notes for Monday's review, Ethan closed his laptop and asked, Do you want to come to the investor gala next week? Sophie nearly dropped her pen. I'm sorry, what? It's a formal event. You'd be attending as my assistant. We need someone in the room who spots red flags. Her eyes narrowed. You mean legal red flags or fashion ones? He didn't answer. She blinked. Do I even own anything that counts as formal? I'll have someone send options. Options? Dress. Shoes. Hair. Hair. You have potential. She squinted. Are you complimenting me or submitting a maintenance request? Still undecided. The next morning, Sophie woke to a knock on her apartment door. It was a woman in a sleek blazer holding a garment bag the size of a mattress. From Mr. Blackwell, she said. Tailored. Try everything. He doesn't like surprises. Inside the bag 3 dresses, 2 pairs of heels, and a note in Ethan's handwriting, function first. But try not to fall this time. Sophie laughed. Aloud. And somewhere in that laughter, was a question she didn't want to ask. Why did she suddenly care what Ethan Blackwell thought? The gala night arrived like thunder wrapped in velvet. Blackwell Tower's private ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers, gold-trimmed walls, and people who smelled like money. Sophie stood near the entrance, in a dress she didn't pick, shoes that pinched, and a hairstyle that somehow defied gravity. She felt like a well-dressed imposter. And Ethan? He looked like power in a tailored tux, composed, clean's haven, but with a flicker of something in his eyes when he saw her. You clean up well, he said. She raised an eyebrow. You sound surprised. I am. As they entered, conversations paused. Heads turned. Whispers sparked like flint. Is that the nanny? She's with Ethan? She must be really good at something. Sophie smiled through clenched teeth. Fake it. Smile. Pretend you're not drowning in judgment. Ethan leaned in slightly. Ignore them. That's easy for someone with a net worth and a Wikipedia page. I don't have a Wikipedia page. She smirked. I checked. At the main table, seated between a tech investor and someone named Lord Harrington who may or may not have been an actual lord, Sophie tried to stay invisible. Until a server tripped, spilling champagne toward the investors. In a blink, Sophie snatched a napkin and caught most of the spill midair. The investor blinked. Well done. Sophie shrugged. Former waitress. Reflexes come with trauma. The table chuckled. Ethan didn't. But he did glance at her longer than necessary. An hour in, a familiar voice sliced through the noise. Vanessa Langford. PR director. Perfect jawline. Rumored to be Ethan's type. She strutted over, holding a crystal glass like a weapon. Ethan, she purred. Surprised to see you, with company. Sophie smiled. Hi. I'm the unpaid emotional support animal. Vanessa blinked. Charming. She turned to Ethan. Your board is watching. Are you sure this is the right image? Ethan's expression barely shifted. Then he said, she's here because she's earned it. Vanessa's smile cracked. Interesting. Sophie sipped her sparkling water. I'd offer to compare resumes, but mine has crayon stains. Later, during the speeches, Ethan leaned close. After this, I want you to help me prep the EU contract review. Sophie whispered back, you sure you want me near legal documents while wearing heels? You'll adapt. She paused. Is this what flirting looks like for you? He blinked. No. This is delegation. Right, she smirked. Because I'm so reliable. You're chaotic. But efficient. She turned toward him fully. That sounded dangerously close to affection. He didn't answer. But the corner of his mouth twitched. Just slightly. As the music played and guests began to dance, Sophie took a moment to herself, stepping outside to the balcony. City lights twinkled below. She exhaled. He followed. Escaping? Breathing. They stood side by side in silence. Then he said, quietly, you don't belong here, because this world was built to exclude people like you. She turned to him, startled. But that's not your fault, he added. It's the world's mistake. Sophie blinked, unsure what to say. So she just whispered, that almost sounded like kindness. He looked out at the city. Don't get used to it. But she already was. Monday hit hard. Literally, Sophie walked into a glass door at Blackwell Tower before 9 a.m. Automatic my butt, she muttered, rubbing her forehead. Inside, the vibe had shifted. The investor gala had gone viral overnight. Not for the merger. Not for the keynote. But for her. A blurry photo, Sophie in red, napkin midair, saving the champagne, was now a meme. Blackwell's bodyguard. The sorbet savior. The assistant who doesn't Mississippi. She hadn't asked for fame. And she definitely didn't want it. In the office, Ethan was already on a call when she entered. He nodded toward a file on her chair. EU clause analysis. You've got until noon. Good morning to you too, she muttered. He covered the receiver. Coffee's on the table. She blinked. Wait, you got me coffee? He shrugged. Don't make it weird. By 10:30, Sophie had flagged 2 translation discrepancies and 1 duplicate clause. She looked up to speak just as Ethan ended the call. I saw the meme, he said. She groaned. Please don't fire me for becoming a viral joke. You weren't the joke. Pause. He added, you held your ground. She blinked. Did you just compliment me and admit to Googling yourself? Don't push it. At noon, they took a break on the rooftop garden. Ethan rarely came up here. Too open, too chaotic. But today, he followed her lead. Sophie sat on a bench, unwrapping a granola bar. He stood, arms crossed, facing the skyline. "You did well at the gala," he said. "Even with the heels?" "Especially with the heels." She grinned. Then voice softer, "Why did you bring me, though?" "Really?" He didn't answer right away. "Finally, because I trust your instincts. And because people underestimate you." She turned to him. "And you like proving them wrong?" He looked at her. "No. I like watching you prove them wrong." Back downstairs, drama brewed. Vanessa, the PR director, stormed into Ethan's office without knocking. "We have a problem." Sophie looked up. Vanessa didn't acknowledge her. "There's a leak in the Poland proposal. And someone named Sophie Alvarez is being quoted in online chatter." Ethan's jaw tightened. "What kind of chatter?" "That she's involved in legal strategy. That she's not qualified. That you're emotionally compromised." Sophie stood. "Wait, what? I haven't spoken to anyone." Vanessa's tone was razor sharp. "You're not supposed to be visible, and now you're everywhere." Sophie's voice cracked, but she kept it steady. "I never asked for this. You handed me a dress and a room full of cameras." Ethan cut in. "Enough." The room went still. "I brought her in because she's better at this than half our consultants." Vanessa froze. "You're defending her? Publicly?" "I'm stating a fact." Sophie stepped back, overwhelmed. Ethan turned to her. "You okay?" She hesitated. Then nodded. But her voice was quiet. "I just wanted to help. Not become this." That night, as Sophie rode the elevator down alone, her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. "Ignore the noise. You know the truth. That's all that matters." She stared at the screen. And for the first time, wasn't sure if she believed it. The next morning felt different. Quiet. Not peaceful quiet, tense quiet. The kind before a storm or a boardroom implosion. Sophie stepped into the lobby and felt eyes on her. Some smiled awkwardly. Some didn't look at all. She walked faster. Elevator up. Heart down. On the 32nd floor, Ethan's assistant greeted her with a clipped nod. "Mr. Blackwell's in a meeting." He asked not to be interrupted. "Right," Sophie murmured. She took her usual seat, corner chair, coffee in hand, folder in lap. But her mind wasn't on clauses or commas. It was on the whisper she heard near the printer 5 minutes ago, "She's just the nanny." An hour later, the door opened. Ethan stepped out, expression blank, posture sharp. He didn't acknowledge her. Didn't even glance. Just walked past. Sophie's stomach dropped. Was this how it ended? No warning. No goodbye. Just ghosted by the billionaire? At noon, she forced herself to focus. She reviewed the logistics proposal. Spotted a major miscalculation in shipping costs. She should tell someone. But who listens to a ghost? 3:42 p.m. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, warehouse meeting. 4 p.m. 17th floor. Come alone. No name. No emoji. Definitely Ethan. She went. The room was dimly lit, one long table, one chair. And Ethan, standing at the window again, like a billionaire Batman. "You're late," he said. "I'm 2 minutes early." He turned. "You flagged the shipping clause?" She nodded. "It was wrong. I emailed legal, but No one responded. I saw it. A pause. Then, thank you. She blinked. Are you okay? You've been distant. He exhaled. There's pressure. From the board. From PR. From everywhere. I didn't mean to cause problems, she said softly. You didn't, he replied. They did. He walked over. Closer than usual. His voice low. You didn't ask for this attention. But you handled it. Better than I expected. Sophie smiled faintly. That almost sounded like an apology. It wasn't. Then what was it? A warning. She raised an eyebrow. Romantic. Don't let them define your value. Her heart paused. But her voice stayed even. Do you know my value? He didn't blink. Yes. Later that evening, as Sophie exited the building, she bumped into Vanessa. Perfect as always. Lips sharp, heels sharper. Vanessa smiled. You're not going to last, you know? Sophie tilted her head. Is that a threat or a horoscope? Just a fact. You're scared, Sophie said. Excuse me? You see what I see in Ethan. And you hate it. Vanessa leaned in. He won't choose you. Sophie stepped back, smiling. I'm not asking to be chosen. I'm just not afraid to stand where I belong. Vanessa didn't answer. Just walked away. Her silence was louder than any insult. And inside the building, Ethan watched it all from the window. Sophie was at home, hair up, wearing fuzzy socks and Leo's leftover dinosaur stickers on her sweater sleeve. She had zero intention of checking her work email. Until her phone buzzed. Ethan Blackwell, are you busy? She stared at the screen. Then replied, it's my day off. Why? 3 dots. Then can you meet me? Not for work. Her heart tripped. She texted back to fine, not for work. 3 seconds later, just meet me. Corner of 54th and Madison. 1 hour. No suit. No assistant. No boardroom. Just Ethan. And a cryptic invite. 1 hour later, she spotted him. Leaning casually against a black SUV, in jeans and a button-up. No tie. No armor. He looked human. Hey, he said, opening the car door for her. Do I need a helmet? She asked. He smirked. Not unless you're afraid of horses. Horses? Get in. 30 minutes later, they pulled up to a private riding club. Fields. Fences. Open sky. Sophie blinked. Okay. I was not expecting this. You've been drowning in paperwork and corporate politics, Ethan said, grabbing his coat. You need air. And distraction. And, horses? They don't judge. Or leak stories to the press. She laughed. The sound surprised both of them. The stable smelled like hay, leather, and something strangely calming. A trainer handed her the reins of a soft brown mare. Ethan took a black stallion with a knowing nod. You ride? He asked. I've ridden a subway. He chuckled. It's similar. Less screaming. They rode in silence for a while. Sophie's hair tangled in the wind. Her nerves slowly uncoiled. Eventually, they stopped near a small hill, overlooking the paddocks. She dismounted awkwardly, nearly falling. Graceful, Ethan commented. I'm a performance piece. He handed her a bottle of water and sat beside her on the wooden rail. For a while, no one spoke. Then she asked, why really did you bring me here? He stared ahead. Because this is where I come when I need clarity. And, because you're the only person who doesn't talk to me like I'm made of gold. She looked at him. Maybe because you act more like stone. He nodded. Fair. You make me rethink things. She blinked. Like mergers and NDAs? No. Like, people. Trust. How I've been living. Sophie didn't know what to say. So she just said, you're not as cold as you pretend to be. And you're not as fragile as they say. On the way back, they passed a young girl struggling to mount her horse. Sophie walked over instinctively. Kneeled. Tied the girl's loose shoelace. Try now, she said gently. The girl smiled, climbed up, waved. Ethan watched her. That thing you do carrying without effort, it's rare. Sophie shrugged. It's just, normal. Not in my world. She looked up. You could change that. He didn't respond. But his eyes softened. Back in the city, as he dropped her off outside her building, Ethan hesitated. Then handed her a small box. What's this? Just, open it later. She raised an eyebrow. No clues? One, he said, holding the car door. It's not from the company. She stepped out. Then what's it from? He met her eyes. Me. And then he was gone. The box sat on Sophie's kitchen counter for 4 hours. She stared at it between laundry loads and Leo's chicken nuggets. It wasn't fancy, just matte black with a white ribbon. No logo. No label. Just, waiting. Finally, after Leo was asleep and the apartment fell quiet, she opened it. Inside a pen. Not just any pen. A sleek, engraved Mont Blanc. And under it a handwritten note. You don't just catch mistakes. You rewrite stories. Thought you deserved your own ink. Sophie didn't smile. She exhaled. Like someone had finally seen her. Monday arrived with new energy. She walked into Blackwell Tower not as the nanny or the viral meme girl, but as something else. Something closer to seen. Even Vanessa noticed. New lipstick, she asked coldly. Sophie smiled. New perspective. Inside the office, Ethan was reviewing numbers, brow furrowed. She placed a coffee beside him without a word. He looked up. Saw the pen in her pocket. Said nothing. But nodded just once. Like something unspoken had clicked into place. The day was long: contract reviews, staff reshuffles, and a PR crisis about an old partnership Ethan wanted to dissolve. By 3 p.m., tension was thick. At 3:15, the boardroom meeting began. 12 executives. One power move. Sophie wasn't invited, but Ethan gestured her in anyway. Whispers followed her into the room. She ignored them. The CFO started strong, defending the old partner. It's been 5 years. They've helped stabilize our logistics. Sophie raised her hand. All eyes turned. I'm sorry, she said. But did anyone read the supplier's latest audit? They're outsourcing to facilities flagged for labor violations. It's a PR time bomb. Murmurs spread. The CFO flinched. That's not confirmed. I printed the report, Sophie said, sliding it across the table. Page 4. Third paragraph. The room fell silent. Ethan didn't look surprised. Just impressed. Again. After the meeting, as the room cleared, one executive lingered behind. Tall. Stern. The kind who judged without blinking. You speak boldly, he told Sophie. She straightened her shoulders. Only when it matters. He nodded once. Reminds me of someone I used to know. She tilted her head. Let me guess, his name starts with E? He cracked the smallest smile. Then left. Back in Ethan's office, she flopped onto the couch. That was intense. You handled it. He tossed her a protein bar. She caught it. Was that respect? Light snack of admiration. Don't get used to it. She smirked. I'm already addicted. Before she left that evening, she paused at his door. Thanks for the pen. He looked up. It's a tool. Not a gift. She smiled. Still felt personal. He didn't reply. But as she turned to go, Sophie. She faced him. You were right. About the supplier. About the noise. About me. She froze. You're not easy, he said. But you're essential. For a moment, neither of them breathed. Then she said softly, I'll take essential. And walked away. But this time he watched her until the door closed. By Thursday, Sophie had her own badge. No more visitor stickers. No more security checks. It said Sophie Alvarez Executive Analyst Provisional. She took a picture of it. Then deleted it. Then took another one, just in case it wasn't a dream. At lunch, she sat in the cafeteria for the first time. No corner table. No sneaking in snacks. People stared. Some smiled. Some whispered. One intern approached. You're the reason the Poland deal got paused, right? Sophie blinked. Yes. That was badass. Sophie grinned. It was accidental badassery. My specialty. Back upstairs, Ethan was pacing his office, phone to his ear. No, I don't want excuses. I want a timeline that respects my intelligence. He hung up and turned to Sophie. They're stalling on the EU rollout. She nodded. Want me to dig? Already ahead of you. I need you to fix it. She sat down, cracked her knuckles, and started typing. Give me 4 hours. He smirked. You're getting cocky. She shrugged. You started it. You gave me a pen. By 5 p.m., she had a full strategy draft on his desk. At 5:03, he called legal. At 5:07, he sent an all-staff memo titled Efficiency Isn't Just a Buzzword. At 5:15, Sophie's inbox exploded with thank yous. At 5:20, she realized she hadn't eaten all day. She was microwaving leftover dumplings when Ethan knocked on the break room door. You okay? He asked. She gestured to the microwave. This is self-care. He leaned against the counter. You've done more in 3 weeks than some do in 3 years. She shrugged. I just notice things. Like the supplier issue. The labor clause. The glitch in the analytics. Or when your tie is crooked, she added with a grin. He looked down. Is it? She laughed. No. But I wanted to see if you'd panic. He didn't smile. But he did tilt his head. You keep me off balance. She softened. Is that bad? It's unfamiliar. She handed him a dumpling. Try unfamiliar. It's spicy. He took it. Didn't flinch. Then said, you should come with me next week. To where? The Zurich Summit. Private panels. Big clients. No memes allowed. She blinked. Isn't that major? It is. And you want me in the room? You've earned it. She swallowed. Then whispered, okay. Later that night, at home, Leo curled up next to her on the couch. Did you save the company again? He mumbled. She smiled, brushing his hair back. Not today. But I think I scared some lawyers. Leo giggled. Do you like your new job? He asked. She paused. Then nodded. I think. I like who I am in it. Meanwhile, in his penthouse across town, Ethan stared at his phone. He opened a message thread with Sophie. Typed you up? Paused. Deleted it. Typed again, thanks for today. Paused. Deleted that too. Then he locked the phone and looked out the window. Because what he really wanted to type he wasn't ready to say out loud. By Monday, Sophie had a suitcase packed and a passport reactivated. Zurich wasn't just a trip, it was a level up. Ethan had arranged everything. First-class tickets. Hotel rooms that looked like tech museum exhibits. And an itinerary that read like a billionaire's bucket list. Still, Sophie brought her travel size dress. Just in case. At JFK, she arrived early. Ethan arrived earlier. In sunglasses and a coat that screamed private jet, even though they were flying commercial. Excited? He asked, sipping coffee. Nervous. He nodded. Good. It means you care. She smiled. You always talk in LinkedIn quotes? Only before takeoff. On the plane, they didn't sit together. Corporate protocol. But midway through the flight, she got a message on the in-flight screen, seatbelt on. Turbulence incoming. Not just weather. She glanced back. Ethan was smirking from row 2. She rolled her eyes, smiling. Zurich was cold. Crisp air. Glass buildings. Politeness in every direction. Their hotel suite had a view of the Alps. And 2 separate bedrooms, thank you very much. The first night, Ethan briefed her over room service. This isn't just PR. These people measure intellect in milliseconds. Should I wear a stopwatch? He didn't laugh. But his eyes softened. I need you sharp. And unshakable. I'm wearing 3 layers of Spanx. I'm unshakable. Day 1 of the summit was a blur of handshakes, lanyards, and lattes. Sophie stood beside Ethan like a shadow, silent, observant, listening to billion-dollar conversations about AI ethics and quantum expansion. And yet, when someone misquoted a clause from their Poland report, Sophie gently corrected him. With receipts. People noticed. That night, there was a closed-door dinner, 8 seats, hand-picked attendees. Ethan brought her. Vanessa was there too. Uninvited, but connected. She raised a glass. To our fearless leader and his newest advisor. Sophie smiled sweetly. And to the ones who assumed I'd be gone by now. The table chuckled. Ethan didn't. He just passed Sophie the wine list, like she belonged. Because she did. Back at the hotel, Sophie kicked off her heels and collapsed on the couch. Ethan walked in, still in blazer mode. You handled yourself. You mean I didn't spill anything or fall over? That too. She looked up. Why am I here, Ethan? Really? He paused. Then walked closer. You remind me what focus looks like. What integrity feels like. That's a lot for someone who used to glare every time I entered a room. Turns out glaring was just panic in disguise. She blinked. You? Panicked? Every time you smiled. Her breath caught. Why? He looked at her. And this time, there was no sarcasm. No LinkedIn quote. Because it made me forget the rules. A beat. She whispered, what if I like breaking them? He didn't answer. But he sat beside her. Close. Closer. And somewhere in the silence between city lights and heartbeats something shifted. Again. Morning light poured into the Zurich suite like a soft spotlight. Sophie woke on the couch, still fully dressed, blanket draped over her shoulders. She sat up slowly. Ethan wasn't in sight. But on the coffee tablet a note, written in clean block letters, big client breakfast. You sleep like a rock. Eat something, next to it a croissant and her favorite chai. Her heart did something unprofessional. She ignored it. Sort of. The summit wrapped with a closing panel, and Sophie was invited to join. On stage. Microphone in hand. Under the headline, Disrupting the Status Quo from Outsider to Insider. Ethan watched from the front row. She spoke calmly. Candidly. About coming from nowhere. About spotting flaws others missed because she had lived the gaps. The audience applauded. Ethan didn't clap right away. He just looked, proud. Quietly proud, the rarest kind. On the plane ride home, Sophie sat beside him this time. No barriers. No assigned seating. They didn't talk much at first. Then somewhere over the Atlantic, he said, "You're not temporary, you know." She blinked. At the company? In my life. The air between them shifted. Again. Back in New York, things changed quickly. Sophie's name was added to the company site. Her job title? Strategic Advisor. HR called it unconventional. Ethan called it earned. And Sophie? She was just trying to keep her heart from racing every time he said her name with that soft, low tone he didn't use on anyone else. At the next executive roundtable, Vanessa tried again. This time, with charm instead of venom. "You've really come a long way, Sophie," she said sweetly. "From cleaning juice boxes to advising billion-dollar deals." Sophie smiled. Funny how life can pivot. Ethan cut in, eyes locked on Sophie. Some pivots are the smartest decisions I've made. Vanessa's smile cracked like glass under pressure. Sophie didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Later that week, Leo tugged at Sophie's hand in the hallway. "Are you gonna marry my dad?" She choked. "What?" He grinned. "He likes you. And he only likes, 3 people. Total." Sophie crouched down, brushing his messy hair back. "Well, I like him too. But marriage takes time." Leo pouted. "Time is boring." She laughed. "You sound just like him." Behind them, Ethan stood watching, quiet. Listening. Heart slightly offbeat. That night, as Sophie packed up her desk to head home, Ethan appeared in the doorway. "Busy?" he asked. "Just arguing with a stubborn zipper." He walked in. Calm. Certain. Then said, "I've been thinking about Zurich." She glanced up. "Me too. I liked us there." She held her breath. "What are you saying?" He didn't flinch. "I want more moments like that. With you. Outside the boardroom. Off the record." Silence stretched. Then she whispered, "Me too." And just like that, a story that started with a spilled dessert and a broken screen began again. With no mess. Just something real. Unpolished. Unlikely. But deeply, unmistakably true. Rain tapped softly against Ethan's office windows. Not stormy. Not loud. Just steady. Like a metronome. Sophie stood near the floor-to-ceiling glass, arms folded, watching the city blur beneath the droplets. "You ever think it's all just too much?" she asked quietly. Ethan, seated at his desk, looked up. "What is?" "This world. These expectations. The pressure to prove you belong, over and over." He leaned back. I used to think success would fix that. It didn't. She turned. Then why keep chasing it? His answer was simple. Because if I stop, I fall. Sophie walked over. Then maybe you need someone who'll catch you. That afternoon, HR requested a photo for the website of Sophie and Ethan, together. Something professional but warm. Sophie wore her usual structured blazer, soft smile. Ethan stood beside her, arms crossed, eyes neutral. But just before the camera clicked, he glanced at her and whispered, "Smile like you're not terrified." She whispered back, "Smile like you have a soul." Click. And just like that, they looked like a team. Even if neither of them said what they truly felt. Later that night, Sophie found a folder on her desk marked "Confidential." Inside, a proposal draft for a new foundation. Named the Alvarez Initiative. Mission to fund scholarships for first-generation students in tech and business. Sophie's hands trembled. She rushed into Ethan's office, holding the folder. "What is this?" He didn't look up. "An idea. Based on someone I trust." Her voice cracked. "You're naming a foundation after me?" He finally looked at her. "You changed my company. You changed my son's world. Maybe it's time the world reflects that." Sophie didn't cry. But her throat burned. Outside the building, Vanessa was already waiting. She always knew when something changed. "You're really embedded now, huh?" she asked, stepping into Sophie's path. Sophie smiled, soft but unshaken. "I don't need to be embedded. I built my own ground." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "Just don't get too comfortable. The higher you rise, the more it scares you?" Sophie cut in. Then walked past her. No anger. Just grace. And maybe a little satisfaction. That evening, Sophie stopped by Ethan's penthouse, not as an assistant. Not as a strategist. Just her. Leo ran to her with a book in hand. "Will you read to me?" She sat beside him, pulling him close. Ethan stood in the doorway, arms crossed, a softness in his eyes he didn't even try to hide anymore. After the story ended, Leo yawned and mumbled, "Are you staying for dinner?" Sophie looked up at Ethan. He answered without hesitation. "She's staying." Later, after Leo had fallen asleep and the city twinkled below, Ethan poured 2 glasses of wine. They sat on the balcony in silence. Until Sophie finally said, "Why now?" He turned to her. "What do you mean? Why are you letting yourself feel?" He took a slow sip. "Then, because every time I pushed you away, you didn't flinch. You saw me. Not the suit. Not the numbers." "And what do you see in me?" she asked. He didn't blink. "Everything I didn't know I needed." She set her glass down. Moved closer. "And what now?" He didn't hesitate. "Now. I stop pretending I'm not already falling." And this time she caught him. By Friday, the office air had shifted. Not tense. Not heavy. Just aware. Whispers weren't gossip anymore, they were respect. Sophie passed execs in the hallway, and no one called her the nanny now. They called her Ms. Alvarez. And Ethan? He still barked at suppliers, grilled analysts, and tore apart contracts with military precision. But when she entered the room, he softened. Subtly. Sharply. Undeniably. At noon, a delivery arrived. A single white orchid in a glass vase. No card. Just a sticky note, "For patients under fire." Sophie smiled. Vanessa saw it. Said nothing. But her silence carried 100 unsent emails. That afternoon, Ethan called Sophie into the boardroom. Just the two of them. Papers everywhere. A big screen showing a slide deck. At the center, a pitch for the Alvarez initiative. Sophie scanned the presentation. Scholarships. Internships. Mentorship programs. Then her name. Bold. Centered. She swallowed hard. You're making this real. He nodded. I want it launched by Q2. And you want me to run it? He looked up. I want you to own it. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. I don't know if I'm ready. You've been ready. As they finalized slides, Ethan leaned over her shoulder. Close. His voice low. I've worked with hundreds of consultants. No one sees gaps like you do. She smirked. I used to see gaps because I fell into them. He straightened. Now you build bridges. And just like that, she couldn't breathe for a second. By 7 p.m., the boardroom lights dimmed. Sophie stood before a panel of Director Salone presenting her first major proposal. She spoke with clarity, conviction, and just enough vulnerability to make them listen. When she finished, there was a pause. Then the chairperson said, approved. Unanimously. Sophie blinked. Ethan didn't. He already knew. Outside the boardroom, the city glowed against the glass. Ethan walked up behind her. See, he said softly. Not a glitch in the system. She turned to him. You didn't just believe in me. You bet on me. He leaned in. Best risk I've ever taken. Her voice was unsteady. What happens next? He didn't smile. But his voice dropped to something deeper. Next, we stop pretending this is just business. And with the weight of weeks between them, he kissed her. Slow. Certain. Like every missed moment had been leading to this one. And for once. She didn't doubt it. Didn't second guess. Didn't ask if she was enough. Because for the first time she knew she already was. Viet fan 15 ket tuk part 15 that tron ven theo dung outline dong vong kung day du, de ka trien kep lai suk dong bam sat tai lu 900 token. Kong Viet tren canvas. 6 months later. The Alvarez initiative had funded 23 scholarships. 3 former waitresses were now interns at Blackwell Global. And the girl who once mopped juice off conference tables? She now had her own office with a door, a team, and a nameplate that didn't need explaining. Sophie Alvarez, Strategic Director. It was a Tuesday morning when she walked past the janitor Martin kneeling beside the elevator, scrubbing gum off the marble. Sophie paused. Kneeled beside her. Need a hand? She asked. Marta looked up, confused. You're a boss now. Sophie smiled, picking up a second rag. I'll always remember how it feels to be invisible. That same day, Leo showed up to the office, early art project in hand, glitter in his hair. Daddy says I can stay while he finishes his meeting. Sophie cleared a chair beside her desk. What's the masterpiece today? Leo unrolled it proudly. Crayon drawings, a tall building. A smiling woman. A tiny superhero boy. Labels in shaky handwriting. Me. You. Daddy. Her heart squeezed. You gave me a cape, she said, touched. Leo grinned. Because you save people. You saved us. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Later that afternoon, the building's PR team asked Ethan for a portrait session. He refused. Then pointed to Sophie's office. Photograph her. She's the story now. When she found out, she barged into his office. You're avoiding attention again. I prefer strategy to spotlight. And yet you used to be the spotlight. He stood slowly, walked toward her. I used to think being seen was power. She raised an eyebrow. And now? He touched her cheek, gentle. Grounded. Now I know seeing someone else fully, that's the real kind. That night, they went home together. Not to the penthouse. To her apartment. Still small. Still warm. Still hers. Leo was already asleep. Ethan loosened his tie, sitting on the couch while Sophie changed into an old hoodie. You know, she said, flopping beside him, I never imagined this life. He looked at her. I did. She smiled. From the start? No, he admitted. But the moment you corrected my bored mid-sentence in heels you hated, I started rewriting the ending. They sat in silence for a beat. Then she asked, what do people like us do next? Ethan reached into his coat pocket. Pulled out a small velvet box. She froze. He opened it slowly. Not a ring. A key. To his place. To his life. To their future. No pressure, he said. She took the key. Then his hand. And leaned her head on his shoulder. Because in a city built for the powerful, among glass towers and whispered judgments, a poor nanny hadn't just survived the climb, she'd rewritten the rules. And in the process, she found the kind of love that saw her, chose her, and never asked her to be anything less than exactly who she already was. The end.